Okay, I have a question, unless you want to go, Winnie.
You can go ahead.
You sure?
Yes.
Okay, so I think it's public knowledge, but Jesus was also Carl Jung. If people are, I don't know, should I have said something?
That's fine because
Okay.
he's going to talk about it a bit in the video we haven't released
Oh,
when
nice.
he was talking about how he was affected by everything.
So Jesus, during your days as young, you had a collection of working drafts for a book that I believe you had a working title of Liber Novus, and that was recently released as the Red Book for people to read. But you want to talk a little bit about that book or any of your other books as young? There's still people talking about you as young and as Jesus, so you just keep having these phenomenal roles here.
And you tell me why I would care how other people wear their hair. Because you see, the reality is that I'm a bit like Stephanie in that she can't remember what she said yesterday. And it's because when you just let the words play through your lips today, you don't have to hold on to them, you see. So I could probably go into that lifetime because we do have to switch gears, you see, when we talk from a particular identity. We tend to get into a certain point of view. And then we have to get into a different point of view when we're talking from our experiences in a different life. It's sort of like if you are asked to explain what you wrote in the sixth chapter of one of your books that you transcribed for us, Steph, what would you say? I would say, I don't have a clue. And it's true, I don't have a clue. And I don't really care either because it's over, it's gone to whatever, if I might care at some point if somebody said, hey, a lot of people would like to read this book. Could I publish it for you or could I promote it for you? I might say, well, whatever, go ahead. But it's yours now. It's not mine anymore. So the fallacy of a lot of people we see is that we think that we have perfect memory, you see, but we don't. At least I don't. Maybe others do. Tobias, do you have perfect memory? Not at all. Jesus, I couldn't even remember Stephanie when we first met. Exactly. Because we have many parts to play. And when we are playing one part, we are in the game, you see. We're in the game. And we say, I'm in the game with you. And now what are we going to do today? And if we're talking to Stephanie, she says, I don't know. What do you guys want to do? We say, I don't know. What do you want to do? She says, I don't know. What do you want to do? And then somebody says, well, do you got any questions or anything you want to talk about? Actually, we don't do that because the way it works around here is that Steph will come and we will say, Steph, what do you need? And she'll say, I don't know. Just want to hear what you have to say. And so we'll have a bunch of people here who have a lot to say because we're watching her go about her day, you see, because we can tag along with her energy. Otherwise, we couldn't know what was going on. We've talked about this before, not sure where or when, but it was recently that when we look at the earth, we see energetic patterns. We see a lot of darkness, like looking down on dark clouds, you see, and we see patches of light that penetrate the night. And we say, well, there's someone who has cleared away a path for us to connect with them. This is why people say, well, you have a gift today where you can hear those in heaven. It's just a way of saying that when you clear away the dark energy, then you create a pathway where we can play with you. Otherwise, we can't play with you. And it's because you have so much trauma in your soul identity. And that trauma acts like another example we've given in the past. You have a net that's chock full of old boots and dead fish and seaweed, you see, and the light can't get through, and the water can't get through, and it can't flow through you. And so you can't catch what we're trying to tell you because you don't have the clarity that will allow the water that flow through you so you can pick up the vibrations in the water. You see, your net is full of all that trash. And that trash is all the trauma and worries and shame and blame that you hold close to your chest, you see. Some of it is from past lives, even, but most of it is from your current lifetime. And so when we see someone with a bright light, you might say, we say, well, we can connect there because the water runs clear. The water runs clear. And if we flow through that net, you see, that person will catch the fish. That person will catch the fish, which is like saying that they will catch our thoughts, you see. And they will say, thank you for that today. And then they'll throw the fish back into the sea and say, swim away because I already got that thought today. And now I don't need you anymore. But when you hold on to the fish in your net, you see, you become so clogged up in your reality that you can't catch any fish. And if you're really, really clogged up, maybe a fish or two will clunk into your net and you will think it's an old boot because that's the way it appears to you because you got so many old boots caught in your net. And so you won't even know what it is, you see. And this is the way most people are on Earth. They're so clogged up that the water can't run through and the fish can't be caught, you see. So when we find somebody who's really clear and doesn't care because she knows that she doesn't need those fish, she can just throw them back in the sea and more fish will come to her because when you're free and you trust on God energy, you don't have to worry about stocking up the larder, you see. You don't have to worry about a big bank account because you know God will take care of you. So you don't have to have all those stinky fish that you're holding on to because you're afraid that if you let them go, there will be no more thoughts for you. You'll be stupid, you see. So if you memorize all those Hebrew scriptures and you have to clog up your net, not much is going to get through. And so you got to let that stuff go. And you got to trust that when you need it, it will come back to you. When you need it, it will come back to you. And you will know what to do. However, for me, the things that matter to me are the things that come to me when I join my energy with Steph's, you see. And she will be reading something on the internet. And I'll say, that's interesting today because I'm catching fish in my net, you see. And I'll say, that's interesting. That reminds me of this and that and the other because I have a history of fish, you see. And I can say, well, that's a salmon. That's a mackerel. Oh my God, that's a shark. Got to rip up my net. And so the way we play is to play with you each day in what matters to us today. But I would have to look into my history as Carl Jung to figure out what you're talking about. And I don't really care. I don't really care because it has nothing to do with me today. I don't know if you understand this. It mattered a lot to me to clear my name as Jesus, you see. That mattered to me, and it's mattered for me a long time. In my lifetime as Carl Jung, I spent a lot of time trying to figure it out. Spent a lot of time trying to figure it out. And I got a lot of clout because other people couldn't figure it out. And they didn't even try because in those days they just said, well, work of the devil, lock them up, lock them up. They're crazy, you see, because the devil got their claws in them and they would treat them horribly. This is what I remember, Vic. I remember how horribly people treated members of the human race. I remember this very well. And I remember that my heart went out to them. And I remember that I was trying to find a way to help them, you see. And I remember that the efforts I made to help them got me a lot of grief because I couldn't figure it out completely, you see. I couldn't find the golden key. And you can ask me, how is it when I was Jesus that I had a life as Carl Jung and I couldn't find what I was looking for? I couldn't find the answer that would set these poor people free. I couldn't wave my wand and say, abracadabra, you are healed because you think just like me, you see. I have healed you because you are now a good member of society that will do what you're told and not be so bold as to rebel against the powers that be. Because in my day and age, the best that you could hope for was that they didn't cut you off at the knees and they didn't lock you up and they didn't hang you for a witch, you see. But I never got to the point in that lifetime that I could say, hey, it's very, very simple today. Throw away your textbooks, throw away your learned treatises, and say, I love you today. I love you today because that's all those people needed to hear. Was all they needed to hear was I love you today. And I talked to Steph one day and I did say, Steph, you knew what I never could figure out in that lifetime. You knew that everything that I was doing was stupid, you see. You knew that I was just stirring the stew. You knew that God had it in hand and that all I had to do was say, well, I'm just stirring the stew today. I love to steer the stew and I love you. And that's all I had to do because she said to me, you know, Carl, because I was coming to her in my identity as Carl, you know, Carl, it's okay because that's what you had to do that day. And if all these people are trying to figure out how to do what you told them to heal these people, then eventually they'll come to see that it's hopeless and that all they need to do is say, I love you. And I said, that's true, my dear, that's true. And so my history with Steph is pretty complex, you see, because we're such old friends from Nibiru. However, that is not to say that other people can't come to see that they too can learn the simplicity of God energy, that it flows through everyone and everything, and it will come to you in the way you want it to. And the way you want it to is the way you say to others, I love you. And then God will say to you, I love you too, honey. I love you too. What shall we do today? And then you'll say, I don't know. What shall we do today? And then something will happen, and you'll say, look at that bird fly by. That reminds me of the butterfly and how you said that we would turn from a caterpillar into a butterfly. Will you talk to me about that today, God? And so you see, we always take our cues from the present moment and not from our history. It's always when the bird flies by or we notice the tree has budded, you see. It is always when we feel a breeze and we say that breeze reminds me of something. What does it remind me of? God, can you help me figure out what that breeze reminds me of? And then God will talk to you. But you don't say to God, hey, God, do you remember that day when you came to the Israelites and you did say, hey, I want you to play this way? And I'm giving you a handbook and be sure to pay attention to subsection 3A and don't go astray. And God will say, did I say that? What child of mine was I coming through that day? So just please take Jesus. This is me, Steph. Jesus, he gets it. Jesus has a tendency to over explain.
Thank you, Jesus. I get it.
He keeps trying to, he does that with me too. He just over explains like he doesn't want to make you feel like he's not, he's putting you down or anything, but then he goes through this long, convoluted thing to get there. So,
Nice. Well, we're old friends, so all is forgiven, hopefully, on my end as well.
have to laugh here. This is Tobias. I have to laugh because Steph has Jesus pegged. Because he does tend to over explain. And if you knew him, you would say, sounds like Carl Jung today.
I love it. I love it.
The teacher.
Hi, Jim and Paula.
Hi, sorry,
Hi.
we're late.
Welcome.
Hello. I have a question.
Mhm.
I want to shift to our pets. Our pets.
Our pets.
So the idea of neutering, spaying our animals.
Yeah.
Did you translate?
You want to know about spaying animals, if that's okay? Yes. Tobias is taking this question. It's okay because animals play in a different way. They're not so concerned about things. And although it changes their trajectory, because of course their instincts are to reproduce in a natural way, it also means they get to stay in a comfortable way in a human family. Because if they were in the wild, they would not have the lives that they have come to expect, you see. And so you might say it's kind of a trade off for them. And they don't mind because they are comfortable with their group soul identity, which will simply say to them, today is the day when you play the way cats do. So don't worry about it because it's like saying, is it okay to have an abortion? And that's not a question that anybody can answer for anybody else because everybody has their own trajectory. And so the question of should you spay your cat or not is pretty much the same thing. It's just a chance for you to face your own fears or love based concerns and to see what it means to you. It's part of growth, you see, to face these tough issues. And sometimes they're not too tough for people, and sometimes they are. Steph doesn't like to spay animals or keep them inside because she thinks they thrive outside in a more natural environment. However, she's had cats that were spayed and she's had cats that were not. And they just played the way they played, and it was not a big deal either way.
I got a question.
Mm-hmm.
So we were talking about the net and the fishes. So and the net being clogged. So if the net is clogged with multiple fish and it's just it's the best thing to do in that situation to just listen to the fish, say thank you, I love you, and try not to respond back, especially if you're trying to get to sleep.
The idea of the net is a way of trying to express something, but let's try a different way that might be helpful to you. Think of the plumbing in your house. If something gets clogged, you have a mess, right? Ever had a clogged toilet?
Yes.
Not a pretty sight.
No.
Have you ever had a clogged drain in your laundry room or somewhere?
Yes.
Basement? And the next thing you know, you got a little flood going.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever had a hose that would fly off its connection, like on your wash machine or something, and it sprays all over? And hopefully you're home and can do something about it. But if you're not, you come home and find your whole house flooded.
Right.
Think of your soul as having plumbing. you see. And the plumbing is your ability to let the energy flow through you. Now, your thoughts are energy, you see. And if you don't express them, if you don't let them flow through because you're ashamed to do that, they can clog up the pipes and nothing else can get through. And no fresh water can come to you because everything is stopped up, you see. Now, what do? You unclog the pipes, right? Sometimes if the pipes get so clogged that nothing can get through, but there's a lot of pressure, you'll have a blowout, you see. Ever had a blowout when you just got so angry about something for almost no reason at all? But you said, I guess it must have been all that frustration that I pushed down, you see, because I didn't want to be the bad guy. I didn't want to talk about it. I just stuffed it down until one day I just blew my top. Ever had that happen?
Yes.
The plumbing has to be free and clear of obstruction. And so if you have issues that you can't talk about, which usually have to do with something that you feel ashamed of, or something that you have to hold back because you're told you can't talk about it, then it will clog up the pipes. But if you have good friends or family or a spouse or whatever with whom you can share every thought that you have and just let it fly, then it will go on by. And you will have cleared the pipes for the next thought that comes through, you see. And so that's kind of like the fish that go through the clear net. That's not all clogged up, you see. And so when Stephanie says she can't remember what she said yesterday, she can barely remember what she was going to do 5 seconds ago. It's because she has so much flowing through the pipes that it's constantly going at such a high rate that it won't slow down enough to stick around, you see. And so you have to find a good balance where there's not too much pressure coming through the pipes and the pipes don't have any clogs. So I recommend that you find a way to share with others what you have to say. Like you did today, Jim and Paula, you shared with others what you had to say, and that helped clear up the pipes for you. So that new information could come through. And so some people get so stuck up, you might say, that they can't play in a happy way. Because you can talk to them. Ever talk to somebody and it's like you're talking to a stone wall? Because they can't absorb any more information, you see, because they have to release some pressure first. Otherwise, they'll blow their pipes open. And we don't want that to happen either. So feel free to talk about it. Today, we were discussing the idea that people will get others to post sexually explicit photos on the internet, thinking that it's private, you see, but it might be distributed widely. And people run a scam where they say, hey, I'm a beautiful young girl today. Would you send me a picture of you without your pants on and what you would do with me? And you do. And then they say, we're going to post this all over the internet today, and your family is going to be so ashamed. And so are you, unless you pay us for what we have due. And what we have due is what we can get out of you. So when we were discussing it today, and Steph posted this on her page, the answer to the problem is to clear the pipes. Just say, I have a body today, just like you, and I'm not worried if you see it. And so what's the scammer going to do? If you just ignore their request that you give them this money, are they going to post it anyway? And then they don't get paid? Probably not worth their effort, is it? Their only concern is to get some money out of you. And if you give them a reason to, they might post it just out of anger to get back at you. But if you ignore them, they don't even know if you got the message and if you care. And so they'll go pick on somebody else, you see. So we suggest that you stop jumping on those reports about somebody that got scammed and their naked picture is jamming the airways. Just ignore it. Do you really need to see parts of the human anatomy that you've already seen many times before? What's the score here? The score is that the pipes are clogged because somebody is afraid to let people know that they've had impure thoughts, you know. So give it up, people, because God already knows. God already knows what you did do because he told you to. He gave you that body. And so quit feeding the scams. Quit feeding the scams. And help your children to be free when you tell them, we don't really care, honey, what they do, because the ones that matter are the ones that love you. And the rest who are so caught up in their own shame and blame that they got to jump on those posts that show somebody naked are the ones who are so jammed up in their own energy. They're just hoping that somebody will give them a way that they can be free. They're just hoping everybody will say, no big deal today. No big deal today. There's somebody's naked photo today. No big deal. And then they'll be able to say, I guess I don't have to worry about the way I play. Because nobody cares. Nobody cares. And that's the best thing you can do for somebody in that situation. Just say, who cares? I love you the way you are. And I don't think you have gone too far astray when you act the way God made you. Does that make sense to you?
It's just wonderful to visit with you, and we'll look forward to the video about everything except circumcision. I don't want to hear about that. I'm kidding.
It's like the first 45 minutes.
Oh no.
That's why you missed it.
I was going to say what Steve was trying to tell me. I was like, Steve, I'm not going to say that.
I was thinking about in the new community, I don't know why that popped into my brain. I wondered if I think in general they're doing less of that. I don't know. So I know in my generation it was in the West societies it was more prominent, but I don't know. Anyway, I'll listen to the video.
And I wonder if it's traumatic. Is it traumatic, guys, to the
I was
baby?
just going to ask that.
Yes. Everything that goes on in your life, including the birth process, is something that affects you. Trust on it. And so it can be traumatic to a baby to have that experience when all they want is for you to hug them and hold them close and say, you made it today. You made it today. Oh my God, we love you. You made it today. And they don't need any more trauma than they already get through the birth process, you see. Reassure them that they're fine just the way they are. It's not like they're animals in a zoo and you're going to tag them or something because you want to cut a notch out of their ear or something so you can identify them as one of yours. Just let them be. Let them be. This is Tobias. Anybody else think anything else here? Jesus said, well, I dread to tell you that I went through that a few times myself. And this little elf would rather just take my chances with the dances of the human body and not have anybody else modifying it unless it's me. And I personally don't even see why we need to modify the human body the way people do. But I guess they like to decorate it because they think they need to put their own stamp on their physical form, you see. What about you, Steve? I already know what Steve's going to say. You can leave me out of it, Steph, because you know I won't have anything nice to say. Okay. So there's their version of it. So I guess everybody gets to decide for themselves whether they would do that to their child or not.
I don't know if it was covered with in the previous discussion, but that was definitely a connection with supposedly God commanding that. That may have been what prompted the earlier conversation here, but in the Old Testament, that was what they were told to do. And I don't know if that has anything to do with the
Who told them to do
Anunnaki
it?
or,
God told them to do it.
yeah.
For the Israelites.
Yeah,
Oh, you
the
got to listen in, Jim. You're in store for a good one.
Okay, I'll wait and listen. Thank you.
Listen to your heartbeat because your heartbeat will tell you whether something is the right thing to do. Let me explain this. And this is Jesus, actually, and I'm not going to over cook this one, Steph. I'm just going to say that when you have a decision to make, put your hand on your chest, feel your heartbeat, and think of your choices, and then pay attention to the heart. And the heart will give you a clue because you'll feel it difference, you see. You'll feel either calm or you'll feel an increased heartbeat. Right, Jesus? Yes, that's all, Steph. See, I can be precise and concise when I need to be. I wonder if you were like that Jesus in your lifetime as Jesus. Were you kind of verbose? Yes, I was actually. I made those poor people sit there on the mount until they were so hungry. They could have eaten their toes. And then they said to me, how long does this go before we can find something to eat? And I said, well, I'll have to give you a treat, I guess, because I'm the one that's kept you here past your dinner hour. And so, yes, the answer is yes, I could go on for quite a while. And if you ask me what I said, I dread to tell you. I'd probably say, go look it up in the New Testament. They probably know better than me because my usual spiel is just a long version of I love you. Follow your heart and do what your heart tells you to. And don't take any wooden nickels. And don't do what they tell you to unless your heart tells you that it's the right thing to do.